Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Torah portion class. This week is the portion of Re'eh. Rabbi, you're live on TV here. If you don't mind, it's not a problem. The portion of Re'eh is a very busy portion. Morning, Eric. And there are a lot of topics in it, but I'm going to focus in on one topic, the Mitzvah of Charity, which is greatly emphasized in this parasha. Let me read to you a couple of verses, and then we'll begin to elaborate. It says over here like this: the sabbatical year. You must conduct a release of loans at the end of the sabbatical year. That means if you lend someone $100 or $1,000 or whatever amount of money, and then the sabbatical year comes, the sabbatical year cancels the loan. You cannot exact that loan from your borrower once the sabbatical year comes. This is the type of release. Every creditor must relinquish whatever money he lent his fellow. No creditor may exact payment for a loan from his fellow. Okay? You may exact payment for a loan only from a Gentile who owes you money, but you must relinquish your claim to whatever money your brother Israelite owes you. So this is a mitzvah for Jew to Jew. However, there will be no destitute people. Again, however, these rules will hopefully be irrelevant, for there will be no destitute people among you who will need to borrow money, inasmuch as God will bless you with material abundance in the land that God, your God, is giving you to possess as an inheritance. Now here, provided, of course, that you hearken to God's voice, and your God, by safeguarding all the commandments I am commanding you today. Okay, now here comes the verse that I want to emphasize most. For God, your God, has blessed you with abundance if you observe His commandments, as He spoke to me concerning you. And as I will relate to you later, thus you will lend your own money to many nations, and not money that you have borrowed from other nations. So you will be so wealthy that you will not have to borrow money. Furthermore, you will rule. And he goes on to say how great things will be. But then he says like this: in the end of verse 7, he says, you must not close your hand. Again, no. You must not harden your heart regarding giving. Do not reconsider either. For once you have opened your hand to give, you must not close your hand to the destitute. If you do, you will eventually lose your money, and he will be your brother in poverty. So you'll both be poor. Rather, you must open your hand for him wholeheartedly each time you give him money. So the Torah is warning you. Then he goes in further, he says, here's a warning: beware lest there be an unfaithful thought in your heart, saying, the seventh year of the year of release is approaching. Imagine you're a month before the seventh year, and a guy comes over, he needs $10,000 from you, yeah? In a month you can't collect that loan anymore. So you're going to start thinking to yourself, should I give it to him? It's a loan, it's going to be canceled in 1 month. So you may say to yourself, I'm not going to give. That's the warning here. Beware, lest there be an unfaithful thought in your heart, saying, the seventh year of the year of release is approaching. And because you know that your loan will be released, you begrudge your destitute brother and not give him a loan. So Torah tells you, no, give him and give him again. That's about loans. And then later the Torah talks about actual charity. So in both cases, charity and loans, the Torah admonishes us, tells us that we should give and give again and not hold back. Close your hand, don't close your heart. Make sure that these things don't ever enter your mind. And there's a lot in here, because charity is one of the hardest mitzvahs, as we know. The Torah recognizes that. Hashem knows how hard we work for our money. And it's very hard to part with our money. And therefore the Torah continuously tells us, Paseach tiftach, open and open again. Nasein titen, give and give again. And Rashi tells us, the Rambam Maimonides tells us, even 100 times. A person comes to you and says, I need money, you say, enough already. No, 100, even 100 times. But when the Torah uses the number 100, it means endless. It doesn't mean 101 you don't have to. It means that's the largest number in the Torah, so to say. It means give us money. There's no limit. But it goes further. The Torah uses a language that says you should give him as much as he needs. What does the need? How much does a person need? How much does a person need? What do you think?
Basic health and safety.
Yeah. Basic necessities.
Health is, no, I'm talking about money.
I'm saying.
Huh? I'm asking you the Torah. That's the question.
Their basic necessities.
What is the
Shelter,
basic necessities?
Shelter, food.
So let me share with you a law. You'd be surprised to hear that that's not the case. That's not true. That's not correct. The words in the Torah are like this: Dei machserei asher yechsar lo, which means give him as much as he's lacking. What is a person lacking? Well, depends who he is. He was right. Depends who you ask. Depends on the status of that person. The Talmud says, and this became halacha, that if a person was used to being rich, and he had horses running before him, he was such a rich man that he had a whole entourage of horses and buggies going before him to announce his arrival, you got to give him that. You got to make sure he has that. This is a halacha. It's not a joke, because that's what he's used to. And once you get used to it and you don't have it anymore, you're lacking it. You feel this. I'm not myself. I'm not where I need to be. So when you say you have to give him to whatever he's now lacking, what is he lacking? Bread. He's lacking much more. He's not used to bread. He's used to horses, white horses and fancy chariots. If that's what he's lacking, that's what you got to give him. As a practical matter,
You're giving charity.
we're talking about charity.
For charity for rich people.
First of all, charity for rich people. But the question is, trying to sustain somebody's running horses would be a very expensive proposition.
It is.
A lot.
The point is, as a practical matter, should we start now? So the Talmud tells a story. The Talmud tells a story of Hillel, the great Hillel. You ever heard of Hillel? The house of Hillel, the house of Shammai, right? They're always arguing. So the Hillel was one of these people, but the Talmud says that he was once found running in front of a person to announce his arrival. He himself did it. The man was used to having slaves, and the slaves would run before him and announce that, here, he's coming, make place, make room, Hillel acted that way to a person who lost all his money and he didn't have it anymore. Now, did Hillel do that every day? No, he didn't do it every day. He wanted to show that the Talmud means it. We mean it. So he actually did it. But from a practical standpoint, I don't know that anyone is now going to start paying for people's Porsches and Lamborghinis when they go off, and they lose their money and they don't have the Lamborghini anymore. I don't know that anyone's going to go make a collection. Could we start collecting for Eric's Lamborghini, right? We're not about to do that. Although that would be the halacha. But what, yeah. At least the basic necessities you have to absolutely give. But I want to dedicate this class to this topic of charity. How do we see charity? Most people, what does the word charity mean? That's that English word, and you look in the dictionary, what does it mean? How do we say the mitzvah of charity in Hebrew? Tzedakah. What does tzedakah mean? We loosely translate it as charity. The Rebbe once pointed out that that's an incorrect translation. Because what is charity connotes the idea that I'm being charitable, I'm being kind, I'm being nice. I'm taking something that belongs to me, legitimately belongs to me, and I'm handing it to someone else because he needs it, he asked for it, he wants it. That's a kind act. It's an act of charity, an act of kindness. It's mine, and I'm going beyond, myself, to give away of myself and give it to you. Tzedakah has a different connotation. Tzedakah means something else. The word tzedek in the Torah means justice.
What's the word there?
Tzedek, tzedakah. You ever heard of the word charity, tzedakah?
Right.
Tzedakah. Tzedakah comes from the word tzedek, which means justice. It's not the charity, it's justice. It's the just thing to do. What does that mean? Why is it the just thing? It's the nice thing to do, but why the just thing to do? Do I have to give you what belongs to me? I don't have to. It's a nice thing for me to do it. But why is it justice? Justice is when you come to court and I say you owe me $500, and the court has to determine whether that's true or not. And if they determine, and I bring witnesses and I have proof that you owe me the $500, the just thing to do is to make sure that you give me back my $500. But charity is not justice. Charity means the money is mine. It's not yours. And you're asking me to do you a favor, and I give it to you. So I'm nice. I'm going beyond I'm doing something that is really. It's not just. It's not. There's no justice here. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me. You're asking me to give it, so I'm going to be nice and give it to you. That's charity. The Torah sees this as justice. Why? That means it never belonged to me to begin with. When the Torah says, let's say you come to me and ask, Rabbi, I need a little favor from you. I'm short on a mortgage. I have to pay my mortgage this month. I need $500 help. The Torah says the just thing to do is to give it to him. Not the kind thing to do. The just thing to do. This is a nuance here. It's an important nuance. Why is it the just thing to do? And the answer, my friends, is very profound. Justice means that the money never belonged to me. It belonged to you. It's his money. And that's why the just thing to do is give him what's his. But is it really his? It's mine. My business produced a profit to me. I made that money, and it's in my bank account. I have the right to do whatever I want with that money. It is mine, legally mine. So what do you mean it's just? It's the just thing to do to give it to him, which connotes that this is really his to begin with. And the answer is the Torah actually sees it that way. This money is not yours. It's not mine. It's his.
It's whose?
Yours, the person that's asking, the poor man. It's a poor man's money. And that's why the just thing to do is to give it to him. Why? That needs clarification. You would think that's not true. In fact, it's not true in a legal sense. Imagine the poor man's going to come down, crawl into my house in the middle of the night and burglarize my house and say, wait a minute, it's my money to begin with, right? The just thing is my money. Would he have the right to do that? Of course not. So what does it mean it's a just thing to do?
Are you saying because maybe God...
I'll explain.
All right.
I didn't finish it.
Yeah, go.
I'm going to explain it. In other words, you have to understand what... So I like to give the example. Let's play this out for a minute. The question that the great sages have always asked, why did God create a system where there are rich people and poor people in this world? Why did he make it that way? There should be rich people that have much more than they need, and there should be poor people that don't even have the basic necessities of what they need. Why would God, who has the control of everything, make a system that some people have too much and some people don't even have enough? Why did he do it? Answers the sages. He did it because he wanted charity to exist in this world. If everyone had in abundance and everyone had what they need and everyone was equal, there would be no charity, there would be no giving, there would be no gemilut chasadim, there would be nothing, kindness would disappear from the world. To give you an example, just to illustrate this. Imagine you walk into someone's house on a Sunday morning. Imagine you walk into someone's house on a Sunday morning and you observe this is a family with 10 kids, 10 children around the table that came for breakfast. And you see the mother give his 10 plates on the table, and she's walking around giving cereal to the kids, okay, filling up their bowls. And she goes to 5 kids on the right side of the table and fills up their bowl, and it overflows. And then she puts the cereal box back into the cupboard. The other 5 get nothing. And you wonder what's going on. Why is this mother? What's happening? And you go over to the mother and say, "What just happened?" She says, "Watch. Don't jump to conclusions." And then the man goes back to the table and he watches the kids that have the overflowing bowls give some of their cereal to the kids that got nothing in their bowl. Imagine, you saw such a thing. So you say to yourself, "Wow, that's interesting. This is an interesting household. She's teaching them. Obviously, she's teaching them to share. So she fills up half the kids get a bowl full, a double portion. The other kids get very little or nothing. And the ones that got the double portion are not going to be selfish and say, 'Well, that's mine. My mother gave it to me.' No, they give half what they have, and they give to their brother and the sister on the other side of the table. They got nothing. And you walk away from that table and say, 'Wow, that's very interesting. Very, very interesting." Educational, every breakfast becomes an educational experience in that house. Okay, it's nice. Right? So now we need to analyze that for a minute. The kids that are on the right side of the table that got a double portion of cereal, do they have the right to say, "It's my cereal. It's mine. I don't have to give it to you if I don't want."
And then the wrath of the mother.
Forget the mother's out of the picture for a minute. Is it theirs or is it not theirs? The whole idea that they got a double portion is only for one purpose, to bring it, to give it to the brother that's on the other side of the table or the sister. And the whole purpose, this whole game, was to teach sharing, to teach the idea of give of yourself, give, share, think about someone else. Don't just think about your own little world, your own little life.
And the next day, no.
What?
The next day, the following day's breakfast, that left.
Same thing. He may do the same thing. The mother may do the same thing. Now, if you went into your a normal, one second. If you went, maybe, yeah, that's what she does.
Rabbi, there's got
One second. I want to get.
There has to be
Oh.
an easier way of doing things rather than.
It's much easier to just go around and give everyone equal, right? Yeah,
Right.
it's true.
Because
That's
all you're
what
doing is
that's.
creating a problem for the kids that have a double portion.
Or the kids that don't have anything.
If they don't want to, and if they don't want to give part of their
Right.
portion, then it tells you something.
That is right. So you're going to have people that are going to abuse this system.
Right.
There are going to be people that are going to become selfish and say, "Well, it's mine. My father gave it. She poured it into my bowl, and it's now mine, and I'm not giving it to you." Especially if I don't even know who you are. Because we're playing this out. I'm giving you brothers and sisters, which brothers and sisters usually take care of themselves. But imagine it's complete strangers, and they're not on the other side of the table. You don't even see them. They come knocking at your door and say, "Can I help? Give me some help. I'm hungry." The poor man comes to your car door and says, "Can you help me out with a couple of dollars? I haven't eaten in 6 days." Who are you? The whole idea of charity is justice. This doesn't belong to you to begin with. He gave you that person's cereal to begin with, to give it to him. Why did he do that? You have a good question. Why make complicate things? Just give everyone what they need. That's a good point. The rabbis asked that question. But God didn't do it that way. He had a purpose for this creation. What did he want? He wanted you and me to become kind and open our hearts and to be charitable. If you imagine if everyone had everything they needed, there was no such a thing in this world called charity. Because no one needs charity. Could you imagine a world like that? No one needs anything from anyone else.
It's communism.
It's not
From each
communism.
according to their
It's the opposite of communism.
From each according to their ability, to each according to
No one needs anything. Everyone has what they need. There's no such thing as charity in this world. Would you want such a world? Some would say it'd be better that way. No poor people is the best. God felt differently. God wanted there should be poor people in this world. The question is, why did I have to be the poor one? Why didn't you make me the rich one, someone else the poor? That's a good question. How did I end up on that side of the table? That's a question that no one knows the answer to. Why God chooses him to be rich and him to be poor, that's already God's business. But that there should be poor and rich, that's an absolute necessity. You can't have a world where everyone is rich. The world was created, the world was created in a way that everyone is, it's interdependency. Some on money, some on wisdom, some on health, whatever it means. There's no such a thing that you are self-sufficient. No one is self-sufficient in this world. You need someone else for something.
But you know what's nice, Rabbi? Nice to be born poor and then make money. Then you have
It's always that way.
On both ends.
You're right.
Really.
You're right.
And then you appreciate what you have. If
You're right.
born poor.
On the opposite side.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, people that are selfless and that do give, it gives them purpose, it gives them meaning
100%.
on a daily basis. So a world where you don't have that connection and it builds relationships and connections, I think it would be something
It's a horrible world.
extremely lacking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what another thing I was going to say is, I don't know if the Torah talks about this, but you're talking about, okay, if he asks me, it's technically his. What about at a certain point you make the conscious decision of, all right, now this person's just taking advantage of my good nature? I mean, does the Torah talk about that where somebody?
So the Torah says to give even up to 100 times. Obviously, if the person doesn't need what he's asking you, there's no mitzvah to give. There's no mitzvah to give someone that has everything and just asking because he wants more. If he doesn't need it, there's no need. There's no mitzvah to give. We're talking about people that are in need. They have a need.
Yeah, but do you need that horse is running before you?
You know,
If
Rabbi,
it's a need, you do.
I would rather be born poor and then become wealthy rather than being born rich and stay wealthy.
I get it. I understand. There's a certain pleasure in that. There's a certain pleasure in that. I get it. That we're not talking. We're talking. That's true. But we're talking about the poor person now.
My grandmother used to say, rich or poor, it's nice to have money.
Right.
And I think that,
Oh, yeah.
and what she was really relating to is the fact that to your point, I mean, the condition can change. You can be rich and become poor. You can be poor and become rich.
You know, I was walking once with a cousin of mine who was very wealthy.
There's no guarantee.
I was walking home with him from shul.
Yeah.
He puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, you know, they say money isn't everything. I said, but whoever asked for everything?
But also, another point I want to make, Rabbi, is that when you're born poor and you become rich, it seems like you give more to Tzedakah.
It could be, because you came from that world. That's true. There's no doubt about that. But
Now, also, there's a famous singer named Neil Tzedakah, and I just thought of that. I didn't realize his name was Charity, but yet he charged.
Well, it's just, it's not fair.
That's right.
yeah.
He
So the
charged
idea of
for
justice,
everything.
let me go back to that. If we appreciate that idea, the next person that comes and asks you for a help, a donation, he hasn't had the opportunity to make a living properly or whatever it is. If we had the proper perspective that truthfully the money that is in my pocket doesn't belong in my pocket, it really belongs to that person. And the only reason God put it into my pocket is like in the analogy of the kids with the cereal, is so that we can build a concept of sharing in this world. Then it would be much easier for us to give charity. Now there are laws how much charity you have to give. You have to give at least 10% of your earnings. And some say up to 20%. That's the better way to do it. Up to 20% of your earnings.
Sounds like the Mormon church.
No,
They
it's
have to
not the
give
Mormon
9%
church, it's the Torah.
Of their income.
They took it
to
from
the
us.
church.
They took it from us.
That's mandatory.
That they took it from us. It's in the
Really?
Torah, yeah. In this week's Torah portion.
The fact that it's
Give
not
10%.
mandatory makes it like more of a mitzvah, right? Like the free will of it.
There's free will, but it is a mitzvah. Mitzvah means it's like putting on film. Is it mandatory? It is mandatory. But does God leave it to your free will to put on film every day? Sure. Every mitzvah is mandatory, but you also have the free will to say to God, no, I'm not going to do it. That's the beauty of the way God created us. He says you do it if you're going to choose to do it. I'm telling you what's the right thing for you. I'm telling you how the world has to function. This is the world I created, and this is how it has to be. That every male Jew should put on tefillin, and every person should give charity 10%, and every person should do whatever the mitzvahs are. But I'm leaving it up to you whether you're going to do it or choose to do it or not. I'm telling you what's good for you. I'm telling you what the world needs. I'm telling you how this world needs to function. You want to mess it up, you have the right to mess it up. You have the ability, not the right. You have the ability to mess it up. You have a right to mess it up, but you do have the ability. You can smoke drugs, you can drink alcohol, and make a mess of your life. You have that ability. It's a bad idea, but you do have that ability.
What are the right of poor people or oppressed people to revolt?
To revolt against who? The
Choose
rich.
To revolt against the Romans. We'll go there.
The Romans?
Yeah. In other
The
words,
the Romans were a corrupt people. They of course, they have to. It's a mitzvah to revolt against the Romans, if it's practical.
I'm just taking this in a certain direction because I want to know how far the whole notion of justice goes.
So I'll answer you. I know where you're going.
Okay.
I was going to just clarify this. They told the story of a Jew that once stole money. He borrowed money and he wasn't paying it back. He wasn't paying it back. And they asked him, why aren't you paying it back? He says, it's not really yours. It was only given to you to give it to me when I need it. Really, this whole idea that I just said. And then he went further and said, the truth of the matter is, when you really get into it, if I learned in Kabbalah and Hasidic philosophy that everything is naught, there's only one existence, God, so he doesn't exist, his money doesn't exist. The whole thing is that, I don't have to pay back anything because nothing exists, right? It's only God. So they came to the rabbi and they asked him, he calls him in, what's your story? He gave him that whole speech. We learned in Hasidic class this morning, the Ein Eid Milvadi, there's nothing but Hashem. So there's the lender doesn't exist, his money doesn't exist, so the rabbi said, very good, that's a very good idea. He brings in, calls in his attendant. Do me a favor, he says to his Yankel, Yankel, do me a favor, put this non-existent person on the table, on this non-existent table, and get me my non-existent whip, and I'll whip him into the non-existent whip on his behind and the non-existent behind. He put him on the table. He says, suddenly everything exists. Go pay back the money you borrowed from him. So there's limits to this. In other words, when God put the money into the rich man's hands, he gave it to him legally. From a legal standpoint, it belongs to him. No one has the right to go steal it from him based on this idea that it's only there. It's like you're putting your hand in someone else's cereal bowl. My mother gave it to me. Don't touch it. It's mine. She gave it to me with the intent that I give half of it to you. Yes, or 20%. But till I give it to you, it's mine, and you have no right to take it. That's justice for the borrower. What's justice for the lender? It's exactly what I said. The lender has to know that half of that cereal, 20% of that cereal in your bowl, is really the other person's. Because it makes no sense. This is where I want to really elaborate right now. It makes no sense that a mother should distribute breakfast unequally between her children. That's the question. That's the part that makes no sense of it. God is giving you so much and this person so little. He's the father of both of them. Which father would give, which mother would give more to one child over the other? Obviously it makes no sense. There could be only one reason why the mother or father would do such a thing. That is, to foster a feeling of openness between the siblings. To share and help each other and make the world a world of chesed, of kindness. There could be no other logical reason why God would make such an unequal distribution between his children. We take it for granted. Yeah, I had my success, I'm rich. You didn't succeed, you're not rich. But when you realize wait a minute, your success is not really your doing, it's all God's doing. And his unsuccess is also God's doing. So why is God doing this? People say, but I worked hard. It's my hard-earned money. You're right. But your neighbor also worked hard, and he has nothing. You're not any smarter than him. You're not any more motivated than him or her. And you're doing well, and he's not. Why is that? Because God chose it to be that way. Why would he choose that? The old question that I began this with. Why are there rich and poor people in this world? It's an injustice. It makes no sense. If God is our mother, why would you, the mother, give one child a warm sweater and the other one, naked, to go out in the street naked in the middle of the winter? Why would they do that? How could they do that? There could only be one reason. So the kid that has the double amount of clothes should clothe the naked one that doesn't have anything. Why? I want you people to share. That to me is very important. That's God's system. So when the lender thinks of it that way, he realizes that it's really justice to give charity, not kindness. It's kindness, obviously, but it's more just than charity. And that's how you have to look at it. This world is an imbalance. There's an imbalance in this world for a reason. He wanted man to bring the balance into this world. He could have done it, where everyone wins a lottery ticket, everyone gets whatever they need, and it all falls into place. He could have done it that way. But he didn't want to do it that way. He wanted we should do it that way. We should perfect the world. We should make people, we should help people in their time of need. If there were no needy people, it would be a horrible world.
It's a personal help. It's a person-to-person help.
It could be person to person. It could be organization to organization to people, government to people.
Well,
yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. If the government has a role, the government can mandate the equal distribution of all goods and services. They have a name for that system.
Not equal distribution. Who said equal distribution?
If the notion of this is why I was asking you to try to refine the notion of justice. Because if one is going to call it economic justice, the common understanding of what economic justice is a more or less equal distribution of goods and services.
Not equal distribution. No one ever said of equal distribution.
As food, shelter, and medical care.
I never said equal. I said 10% or 20%.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but this notion of justice,
Yeah.
you were saying that a person could ask up to 100, even 100 times.
Right.
And then would be up to the other person to decide whether they had really had a need or not.
Yeah, but we're talking about if they do have a need.
So all I'm saying, and I'm not making an argument in either case here, I'm simply trying to ventilate, air this out a little bit. For God to achieve, I guess, the objective of the mitzvah with the Jew has to, of himself, give, but he gets a guideline, 10 to 20%. And also, if somebody personally comes to them and asks for something, they need to respond to that person. I'm just wondering what if, because there's a tremendous amount of abuse, as we know, in social systems. Horrendous outcomes result from this titular.
I agree. I don't think it should be a government system. This is personal. There are laws in the in Jewish communities of old. There was something called a kuppah. There was something called a tamchui, which means a daily distribution for poor people, a weekly distribution for poor people, and the leaders of the community taxed people based on their income, based on their ability, but they never taxed them more than the 20%. More than they said you have to give up to 20%, up to 10%. Someone say I'm not giving anything, and there's poor people that don't have bread to eat, they're going to come in and take it from you, up to a certain amount. But no equal distribution. There's no mitzvah in the Torah to have equal distribution. They should give 50% away to there's no such thing. But I want to take this one step further. The Talmud tells us that Rebbe Chabad Ashirim. Rebbe, the great Rabbi Yehuda, the prince, lived in the 2nd century. He had great respect for rich people. He honored rich people. He gave them plaques, he gave them honors. He did things for rich people. And people wonder, Rebbe, the great sage is going to honor rich people? That sounds like a little bit, just trying to rub shoulders with the rich. What's going on here? So the first answer you have to know is Rebbe himself was one of the wealthiest people in his generation. He didn't need any rich people. He didn't honor the rich people because he was hoping to get some favoritism. He didn't need them. So why did he honor them? So he said like this, and this is the other side of this coin. He was rich, and he knew the test of being rich. Sometimes being rich is more difficult than being poor. The test of wealth can be sometimes worse or more difficult than the test of being wealthy. Than being poor, sorry. He knew how much inner strength you need to remain loyal and to not to be. What did we read yesterday in the Torah portion? Moshe warns the people, I'm very afraid what's going to happen. You're going to go to Israel and you're going to be successful and you're going to have a haughty attitude towards yourself and you're going to forget God. You're going to start kicking. And think to yourself, I made my success. I made my wits and my wisdom. I made this for myself. I worked hard. That's what Moshe says, those words. He's afraid that the people will say that my wisdom and my strength brought me this success. He says that would be a terrible mistake. That would be a terrible place to fall into. Because you should know that it's not your strength that brings you to success. Yes, you have to open a business because that's the way God wants it. He wants to work through the laws of nature. But who's working through the laws of nature? It's God working through the laws of nature. He's deciding if you're going to be blessed or not. So two people can open up the same business with the same advertising skills, with the same everything. One does well and the other doesn't. That's just the way it is. Why? Because God wanted it that way. So Rebbe knew the test of being rich. How easy it is to fall into this attitude. I'm bigger and I'm more important, and who are you to tell me what to do and get out of here and close myself off behind gated communities. I don't want to hear about you. New York, I want you to know something. We don't even realize something important. When I was growing up in New York, a Sunday or Monday or two, every day of the week you got knocks on the doors. People coming for a donation. This organization, that organization, this person is coming to marry off his daughter, he doesn't have money. This one's coming for whatever. This important organization. It was nonstop. And the people that were known to have a lot of money, to them they had to leave. They were like, a whole Sunday was a marathon of people coming to the house for charity.
It was a line.
It was a line. And they would sit there, the kind ones would sit there with a checkbook, one after the other. And they would write checks. Some places, they said, I had enough of this, I'm going to live in a gated community. They can't get in. But that's already, the Torah says, I'm afraid that that's going to happen. You're going to get too successful and you're going to start thinking to yourself, I'm this and I'm that. But they hide behind closed doors and closed gates, and no, you don't give your phone number to anyone, no one can bother you. I know we like to live that way, but it's a very, very sad reality when people live that way. I live behind closed doors, behind gates. That's the way this city is built. There's nothing else to do. I'm not taking down the gates. But the concept of hiding behind so no one can bother you, you don't give out your telephone number, no one can get into you. Who is that? They call you from the gate. Who is that? Don't let him in. What do you mean, don't let him in? The problem isn't no one even comes here. People don't come here to raise money like they did in the big cities in New York, where you get knocks on your doors. But people don't even bother with gated communities. They know they're not getting in. But we're losing something so important, the act of charity. So Rebbe knew the test of being rich, how easy it is to fall into an arrogance and to be in a place. So if God gave you the money, He chose you to be the rich one, it's because He knew that you have the ability to overcome the test of being rich, which is an enormous test. So He said He would go around saying, you're rich, wow, God, you have that incredible spiritual ability. That's why He honored them. People with such spiritual ability He honored. Not because of their money. He didn't need their money. But when He saw God chose this person to be rich, is because God knew that this person has an incredible spiritual ability to overcome the test of being rich.
And many rich
That's
people.
honorable. They have freedom of choice. Everyone has freedom of choice. It doesn't mean they don't have that ability. If they didn't have the ability, God would not have made them rich. He made them rich because in their soul there's that extra potential, extra spiritual strength to overcome the great test of being wealthy. For that, He honored them. So there's two sides to this coin of tzedakah. One side says, be just. Recognize, realize God gave you this money. It's yours. He's a mother, a father of all these, all the people. He would give you more than them? Why would a father or mother do that? There's only one reason, so you should share. He wants sharing in this world. So He gave you their portion, put it into your pocket. But how foolish could you be to say, it's going to stay in my pocket? It's not yours. On the other hand, you have to know that you were chosen for this purpose. Not everyone was chosen to be wealthy. Not everyone has that spiritual ability. And if somehow you became that wealthy individual, it's because God knows that you have the ability to be that what do you call it? The person that I can deposit everyone's money into your bank account. And He trusts that you'll distribute it. When they come to your house and knock on your door, you'll give it to them. You'll have the wisdom to say, oh, finally the guy came to get his money.
Rabbi Smolka.
Yep.
So when you get a call from someone you don't know from the Police Benevolent Association on the telephone, you don't know who they just got your name off the list.
It's a very good question.
Are you required to give charity to those people?
That's a good question. I'll answer that. I'm going to the next part of this important subject. The Rambam gives us the laws of charity. No area in Torah we're not in the dark with any area of Torah. That the Rambam lays out the laws of charity in a very, very detailed way. And he says, what's the priority for charity? It's a perfect question. I'm inundated with envelopes. I'm inundated with charities. Who do I give? How do you do this? How do you manage this? First thing he says, the first charity you have to give is to the poor people of your town. Your immediate surroundings is mostly your responsibility. If you have two poor people that show up to if you have two organizations that feed poor people, one is from Weston and one is from Plantation or Miami or New York or wherever, your first responsibility is the poor people of your locale. Aniyei ircha koidmin, the poor of your city come first. If you have leftover, you can go and move it on to the next. But charity begins at home. How's the saying go? Charity begins at home. What does that home mean? It means your locale, the people around you. So that's one answer. I don't know if that makes it a little better. But there's nothing wrong with sending them a few dollars, a check of, even if it's $5, whatever it is. It's hard to say no to people, right? So I find it hard to people call me. I can't say no. I don't know how to. As I send them $18. Someone that I never heard of. It's a legitimate cause. I'm not doubting that. But could I give to every legitimate cause? No, I can't. But those that call me, I don't get calls every day. It's not like I'm not on anyone's list, you know. And why would they put me on the list, right? But those that I am, they call, I give something. I don't turn them down. But if it becomes like I get hundreds of calls a week, I wouldn't be able to, obviously. I'd have to say I can't, I'm sorry. So yeah, God gives us that wisdom too, how to manage this. But he gives us the basic rules of charity, that your locale comes first. You know, American Jewry were known to give a lot of money for Israel, right? And the UJA used to make big, in the 50s and the 60s, they gave a lot of money to Israel. Then Israel became very successful, thank God. Today, the federations will tell you that they spend much more money on the local charities,
You know, Rabbi,
on local needs.
1967, I'll never forget.
I know,
How
exactly.
much money they raised from Jewish people in that war. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Really, millions and millions. And
Oh yeah, tens of hundreds of millions.
Yes,
Probably.
hundreds of millions. And how fast it came in.
Yeah. But it wasn't only then. It was after 48, the whole beginning of Israel. People gave money.
Oh, no, I'm
But
not
then,
saying-
but then people started seeing that everyone in Israel has a cell phone,
But in 67,
and everyone in Israel
I
has a
remember
car.
67 like it was yesterday.
I know.
The one fellow that I remember, the Jewish guy who played the trumpet, I can't think of his name, he gave millions.
Yeah.
Uh, famous trumpeter, whatever.
I do remember being in, this bar mitzvah in '66, and I do remember, how active everything was around the shul around that time, and money raised. I remember going out and raising money during that time,
But-
running around house to house.
But my point is that today there's a big emphasis on local. People turned local. And first of all, Israel, Baruch Hashem, thank God, they're okay. They still need help, but it's not like it was. So they'll tell you that today they are focused more locally. And the truth is, charity begins at home. That's a priority of charity, is to take care of your local needs. Now, there's an emergency, like you're saying, where the Jewish people are in peril and there's a major need, everyone steps up to the plate. There's no doubt about that. Now, the Jewish people, one of the greatest attributes of the Jewish people is charity, as we all know. But I want to speak about another point. How to give charity. In other words, you can give charity begrudgingly, and you can give charity with joy. You make the person that's asking for the donation feel like a beggar, or you can make him feel, so thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's a world of a difference. I'm on the receiving end. I raise money. That's part of my job. I do it with great pride. But not always do you get, sometimes it comes begrudgingly. Not everyone gives with so joyously. That is, according to some of the opinions, halachic authorities, part of charity is the way you give it. It's extremely important to understand this.
And
When a
also
poor
how you-
person,
and also
how you give
it
it. That's
too.
what I'm talking about.
Not
How you
way,
give
but
it.
how you give
I
it.
mean, that's what I mean. How it's given. If you're giving it with joy and you're making the person who's receiving feel like dignified, or you send your son, in New York there were people that I said they used to come to your house and ask for a donation. They would come to the door, knock on the door, ring the bell, and ask for a donation. Who would go down to, those days we didn't have an intercom. There was no intercom. So you had to run down the steps, and who is it? And open the door. So who would go down to open the door when people came? Me, my brother, the young ones, the 13, 12-year-old. Someone asked you, someone's looking for a donation. Tell them to come up. Sat him down, made him a coffee, brought him out some cake, and then they would give. My father was by no means a rich person at all. He would give these people, probably at the end of the day, he'd give them $18. But they felt like $1 million when they left. On the other, there's another way of giving. Who is it? Oh, okay, come upstairs here, take the $5, go down and give it to him. That's two worlds. They both got the same amount of money. One went home crying, one went home feeling great. It wasn't the amount. It wasn't the equal distribution. It's not about that. Sometimes it's not about what you give, it's how you give it. Now, obviously, you need to give. It's what you give is also important. If you give a nickel, it's not going to get the person very far. He needs more than a nickel. He needs more than $5. But sometimes that's all you can give. You give it with an open mind and an open heart. That's what really is more than any. Maybe just as equal. Let's put it that way. The Rambam says there's 8 levels of giving charity, and he points them out. The greatest level is that the person giving has no idea who he gave it to. First he says the best is a loan. You lend a person money, put him on his feet, help him establish himself. In the words of the sages, there's charity to the rich, there's charity to the poor. How do you give? Could you give charity only to the poor, or could you give charity to the rich too? Could you give? It's a good, interesting question. Could you give charity to a rich person?
Yeah.
How?
Maybe does it have to be in a financial way?
Talk in a financial way, yeah. It's very simple. So rich people also need loans. Their money is tied up. Their things are tough. Yeah, they're having a hard year in business. They need a loan. Give me a loan. I'll give it to you back at the end of the year with my. That's charity to the rich. Charity to the poor is not a loan; it's a gift. They don't have a way to give back. They don't have money to pay back. They need the money they don't have. Rambam says the highest level is to give a loan and establish a person so that he doesn't have to ask anymore. Set him up in business. Give him an opportunity to be self-sufficient. That's the highest. The second is if you have a person who the giver doesn't know who he's giving to, and the receiver has no idea where he's getting it from. So, for example, it's anonymous in both ways. So, for example, when I call people, once a year I make a collection for poor people over here. For feeding them and feeding needy family. Before Pesach I do it. It's called Ma'od Chitim. A lot of people contribute to this fund, and I distribute. I give people vouchers, I give them money to go buy for Pesach, whatever they need. The people that are giving have no idea who they gave it to, and the people that are getting have no idea who gave it to them. Why is that an important thing? Because this way they're not embarrassed. No one's embarrassed from anyone else. Imagine you gave someone $100 or $1,000 to charity. He's always feeling around you like a little bit, I owe him and I'm not he's not feeling comfortable around you. You avoid that. You give it through a third party, and that third party gives it to the person. That person doesn't know who ultimately gave it to him, and the giver doesn't know who's the receiver doesn't know who's the giver. Best way. Second, the third best way is, at least one of them is in fact. You know who you're giving to, but you don't know who you're getting from. You know who you're giving to, but the person getting doesn't know who gave it to him. How is that done? So in the old Shtetlach, there were people that would go around Thursday night, I kid you not, and they'd put in front of every door that they knew who was poor, they'd put down money. And they waited for it. So they knew who they gave, but the person getting didn't know who just put that money by me. I don't even know. Or the fourth way is the opposite. You know who you're getting from it, you don't know who's giving. The person receiving knows who received it from, but the person giving doesn't know who he gave it to. How's that? So the Rambam describes it. They used to go around with they used to hold a bag of money on their back, and people would take it out. What they needed. The guy never saw who took, but the person taking knew whose back it's on. He knew who was carrying that bag of money. It's unrealistic in today's world, but in the Shtetlach, that's the way it was. But apply it today. It can be applied today in a very easy way. And then there's a fifth level, is they both know the receiver knows who he's getting it from, the giver knows who he's giving it to, but he gives it with a cheerful countenance. He does it with a very nice, attitude. He's happy to give. person receiving feels great about the receiving, and so on and so forth. And less than that is he's giving it begrudgingly.
But Rabbi, you know what the problem today is with
Yeah.
charity? There's so many charities that are really not charities. And I'll give you a pitch for one. Whenever you see a name of Ronald Lauder, from S.T. Lauder, I mean, this is one hell of a guy, and I tell you. I mean, one hell of a family. But there's these charities, the people that run some of these charities make so much money off of their salaries. It doesn't become charity after a while, if you know what I mean, Rabbi.
If they have services
I didn't
that
understand.
grade-
No, what was that?
They have services now that grade charities
I know.
based on how much money goes to administration versus how much actually goes to the cause.
Oh,
You do
that's
a
what
little
you're talking
research,
There's
you'll
some
find
of
that.
them, Howard, they're not legitimate.
Yes, there are a lot of them that are not.
Right, which is terrible.
Okay, so you have to. So if you know that something is not legitimate, you don't have to
Then
give.
I avoid
Here's
it.
an interesting halacha, by the way. The law is that every day of the year, if you have someone collecting and asking for a donation, you have the right to investigate. Is this legitimate? It's the smart thing to do, probably. So one day a year, you're not allowed to do that. You know what that day is? Purim. Purim, it says, Kol ha'peshit yad neisim le. Anyone that puts out his hand, you give.
Is there
Huh?
limitations, on the type of cause, for the type of charity you can give? Like, if you wanted to donate to something that is not, like, accepted within Judaism, like, you want to donate to trans kids causes or something like that, is there, like, limitations?
There is limitations, absolutely. So like I said, you're asking about priorities. Should there be a priority? Yeah, there is a priority in charity. The first priority I gave you is local. Then if you want to go beyond local, you finish with your local charities and you have enough money to give outside, fine. So you have to look. There's some charities that you're not allowed to give.
You allowed to give to a Christian charity?
It's a good question. No, you're not allowed to support something that is idol worship. There could be a lot of questions involved in that.
About like a Christian hospital, like say.
That's something else. That's something else. That's not a Christian. It's not a religious thing. It's a medical facility. It's not a religious thing. I thought you meant religious things. What?
Under the umbrella of a religious
So if they take some of the money and it doesn't all go to the hospital, there could be a problem with that. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions about different charity. That's why I say, I've said this from the pulpit many times, and I'll say it here again. There are a lot of charities that are, I thought you were going to say, you said the trans, that I would stay away from a million miles. I would stay away from that in every way, shape, or form. But if you want to give to the Zoological Society, to save the cats, save the whales, there's all kinds of charities. People are trying to save the planet, save the people, save the animals. I said it many times. You go to the Miami Zoo, right? You look at you're stepping all over the place. You see different stones with the grave names on it. They're all Jewish names, not all, but so many Jewish names. A lot of Jews give for all kinds of funny charities, saving the planet, saving the animals. It's a good thing. I guess it's a fine cause, but I'd say if you have $1,000 to give 2 cents to that. No, I don't. I mean it. You know what I'm saying? Jewish charity should go to Jewish causes. I say that out loud. We don't have enough. We are a minority. We are so small. We have our own needs. We have priorities. There's a big world out there. They can support the trees and the forests. Doesn't have to come from Jewish money. There's nothing wrong if a little bit goes to that.
Rabbi, there's a lot of poor Jewish people.
That's what I'm trying to say.
that need help.
That's what I'm saying. It's not only poor
A
people.
lot.
Judaism. How many kids go to Jewish school today? You know why they don't go? Because it costs $25,000 a kid.
Oh,
So, is that more important than saving the whales? I don't know. I think it is.
my two
You're going to get into a big debate on this.
Yeah.
Rabbi, my two,
This is a real can of worms.
And I'm
Who
online.
needs whales?
I'm on live.
Rabbi, my two grandchildren, Solomon Schechter, which is a very expensive school. and half the population that goes there can't afford it. People from outside subsidize. the poor.
100%. I believe that if Jews,
This is wonderful.
I believe that if all Jews gave 10% of their earnings to charity, we would have every single Jewish kid in Jewish school without a problem.
Well, I think
There would be no
that's
problem.
great.
If just gave 10%. And God makes a great promise in the Torah in this week's portion. It says, if you give 10%, I'll give you back much more than you gave. You'll become wealthy. Aser to aser. It says in this week's portion, give 10% so that you become rich. And God says, test me with this one.
So
You're not allowed to test God. One second, you're not allowed to test God with anything. You can't tell God, if I put on film today, will you make my wife feel better? Can't make such tests. Don't test God. But with one mitzvah, he says, test me. Please test me with charity. Because he makes a promise. If you give charity, you'll be rich. He says, and this one, I want you to test me. Try me out.
But you know, Rabbi, the Jewish year starts not in the school, right in the house
We know that.
where you live with your mom
Yeah,
and your dad.
that's true.
That's where it starts.
That is very
And
true.
that's you never forget.
So charity is justice.
Right.
We need to understand that very, very clearly, because it makes the whole experience of giving charity a very much easier one. You're almost like waiting. When would the person come and claim what is his? Because I know that God gave me all this. It's not for me. It's someone's waiting for someone else to come and claim it. If we just thought that way, it would be a different world. We'd be giving charity left, right, and center. We'd be happy when someone came to ask.
The commentary here says that the non-fulfillment of charity is a sin.
It is a sin. Sure, it's one of the 613 commandments. So there's two mitzvahs I talked about. Lending people before the end of the 7th year. By the way, we're in that 7th year now.
But it doesn't just mean financially, Howard. You can give charity in different ways.
I will address that. A lot of people say that, and it's true. I'm not going
If you can't afford
I'm
to
not
give
going to
money,
disagree with that.
You can give something else.
But when wealthy people say that, it's not. It's as long as one is not looking to go to escape the responsibility of giving from his financial resources, that's okay. Donate your time, donate your wisdom, donate your whatever. But you should give money. You should give actual money. I'll tell you what, and I'm going to conclude with one point. This is from the Alter Rebbe in Tanya. He says, the Torah says, I want you to fulfill the mitzvah. Which is the mitzvah? So usually you would think it means the mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs. No, it means charity. The mitzvah of charity is called the mitzvah. Why? Because what happens when you put on tefillin? What part of your body is engaged in, putting on tefillin? Your hand, your head, right? Are your toes engaged in putting on tefillin? Hardly. Not really. What part of you is engaged in lighting Shabbos candles? Your eyes, your head, whatever it is. Every mitzvah has its part. When you give charity, it's your entire existence. Why so? Because what part of you was engaged in earning that money? Your entire existence. That's number one. Number two, you're giving away money. What could you have done with that money if you would not have given it away? You could have bought things and taken care of your whole existence. You could have used that money to pamper, to feed, and give more for yourself. What part of yourself? Every part of yourself. So when you give charity, it's your whole soul, your whole body is giving charity. For two reasons. Your whole existence earned that money, and with the money you could have taken care of your whole existence, and you give it away. So it's not just your hand gave charity. Your whole body, your whole existence gives charity. So it elevates everything about you. It elevates your whole existence when you give charity. So it's not like any other mitzvah. It's the most important of mitzvahs. The whole world stands on this mitzvah. It says in the Mishnah we read in Perkei Avot, on 3 pillars does the world stand. On learning Torah, divine service, and which means prayer, and acts of charity. Imagine a world without charity. So people say, if I was God, I'd get rid of, there would be no poor people. You know the famous story with the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liad. He was once sitting with his colleagues, and they were having discussion if they would, what each would do if they were God. One said there would be no poor, no suffering. Some said there would be no more poor people. I'd make sure there's no poor people. Another person said, I'd make sure there's no sick people, and so on. Everyone said something else. They came to the Alter Rebbe, which was the youngest of them all, and said, "Knew what would you do?" He said, "I would run the world exactly as it's being run. Only I would not understand what's going on. If I was God, I'd understand it all, but I wouldn't change anything, obviously." So God wants there should be poor. He wants there should be rich. He wants there should be an imbalance in this world, and we should bring the balance back to the world. And when you give charity, there's no greater act of balancing the world than giving charity. And that's what God is waiting for. So He distributes it unequally. He said, you'll have more. And He gives you the power. He gives you spiritual strength to be able to overcome the test of being rich. That's why Rebbe would honor the rich, because they had so much spiritual strength. What they did with it is a different story. There's freedom of choice. God never takes away our freedom of choice. You can act very different than what God expects from you. But when He expects from you something, He gives you the strength to be able to fulfill it. And give charity in the highest possible way, which is with a good, cheerful countenance. Make the receiver feel good. It makes all the difference in the world. And with that, I say to you all, have a wonderful week. I will see you next week. Shavua Tov, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi.
Take care.
Hey, Rabbi, is the bathroom open over there?